You're listening to the best experience with Nick Best.
All right, this is the best experience with your host, Nick Best and the Angry Dad. And before we get in today's podcast, we'd like to thank our podcast sponsors, Barbell Apparel, a premium athletic wear engineered for performance with a tailored athletic fit, refined clothing for an athletic body type. Evolution Athletics, a supportive gear company owned by Brian Shaw, four-time world's strongest man and strongest man on earth. We believe in all athletes and supporting their journey towards greatness. Iced Up Industries, some of the best cold plunges, cold baths you can get on the market. And you can get $50 off with code BEST at checkout at icedupindustries.com. Please use our links. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Mitchell Hooper, world's strongest man, two-time Arnold, and Arnold UK, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I can't even keep track of anymore.
Good couple of years.
The list
lift
is
heavy,
crazy.
Be kind, no stone unturned. I mean, how do you find time to do
For real?
things? Oh,
every
and
time I turn around,
husband and father as well. And congratulations, by the way. That's absolutely amazing.
Well,
I don't know where to start with all that.
The time bit's interesting. I always feel like there's this bullseye that I do with people who work for me, and in the middle is -1 in a stage in your life where you're going backwards slightly, which is actually okay for periods of time. Then outside of that, you have +1. I just don't believe in stagnation, and +1 would mean that you're progressing steadily, and +2 is sort of like this temporary idea of you could push really hard to excel, but at some stage you're going to burn out. And I have no idea how I haven't burnt out from being in what I call +2 or +3 for so long. But thankfully, I have really good people around me. I have a bunch of people who work for me who take care of various things to make sure that they're ticking along. But I always joke that my life is mostly going from when someone's on shift and I'm working with them, and then they're off shift and I just go work with whoever's on shift next. And it's a constant struggle, but you have to realize and recognize that one day you won't be the strongest man in the world, and you're going to have to create something that has some sort of lasting effect after you're done with the sport. And that's really my primary concern, because financially I'll be fine. I know that, and I know that I could do things with just take care of myself. But I have people who work for me, and when I'm done the sport of strongman, there's no way that I could turn around and just tell them that, sorry, the career you thought you had doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And then it's being a dad adds a whole nother layer to the fold. And it makes you question a lot of things about your life and how you choose to spend your time and what you're doing, because you're a bad dad if you can't provide, of course, but you're also a bad dad if you're never present. And
correct.
It's where's the balance and where does it shake out? And I sort of have this timeline in my head where I'm going to be much more reasonable with my travel and my schedule once my daughter has the capacity to be able to miss me and know that I'm not there. That's my ultimate goal.
Yeah, and it won't be long. She's pretty little right now, which is awesome. I mean,
they grow so quick.
Yeah, they grow fast. It's so neat when you're sitting there holding them, they fall asleep and all the other stuff. Yeah. But it won't be long until she starts popping that mom, dad out there. It's a neat feeling. It really is.
Well, she's going to be at World's Strongest Man. We'll see how that goes, but hopefully she travels well. And then the solution to being away is that she just comes with me places.
Right.
But there's every possibility that she doesn't like to travel in competition environment. Like, in reality, if you bring a baby along, it's for you, not for them. The baby doesn't care about the show. In fact, even a child doesn't care about the show. They want to go play on the playground that's over there.
Mm-hmm. And I started my strongman career when Dylan was about 5.
Yeah.
And he was at America's Strongest Man in 2006. He was riding his scooter along the inside of the competition area, just playing around and cutting across in front of everything. So when they get there, they just want to play and have fun. It's still great memories though.
It's the ultimate humbling experience, isn't it?
It is.
It's
It
good to keep
truly
things in
is.
check. Absolutely
It,
great to keep things in check.
Oh yeah.
mhm.
No, definitely. With,
But
with all the endeavors that you're going through right now, and
mhm.
you're because like it's so impressive because like I said, your schedule's got to be like I have you like a madman, but it's like every time I turn around, it's something new. You know what I'm saying? And with your team and what you guys are working with, you guys are just constantly coming up with new ideas. I can only imagine the business meetings and the partner meetings you guys are having with these guys every day.
Yeah,
Mm,
there's a lot of moving parts, but it's it's turning into a, I'd say, medium-sized business, depending on your definition. But there's 6 of us now who are working full time on the online business
wow.
side, and a part of it is serious business. That's in the end, you run business for profit and for money and
Mhm.
for opportunity and everything. But it's equally 6 people of similar age who half of us were friends beforehand, and it's a privilege to be able to work with them because more often than not we're laughing about something or having a good time, especially on the trips. Like you guys,
Oh
you've
yeah.
seen me around competition.
Mhm.
I'm not stressed out. I'm mostly like bored. So having say a ping pong tournament the morning of the Arnold, like, that's the stuff that I need. And in the end, I like to think about, I have to be the face of the brand. But the sooner that I can not become the face of the brand, then the better off we are, because then we have
Mm,
a business that's irrespective of me competing or not. So I try to do everything I can not to
Mhm.
make myself the center of attention, because that ultimately gets pretty old. And I hope just to migrate towards business owner more than the person who it lives and dies with.
sure. That, smart. That's
That's
genius.
that's a conversation me and Nick have all the time because like we always constantly like we're not to stroke the ego, but it's like every time we turn around, it's like what is he not doing and what is he
Yeah.
not thinking about as you're
Mm,
competing and as you're doing these things because it's like it's insane because like every time we turn around, it's like there's no chink in the armor for you. Every time we turn around, it's like you're improving, you're constantly evolving, and you're just
mm.
constantly growing with this sport and with everything going on. It's just it blows our mind all the time.
I think it is important to recognize, though, that outwardly it seems like all the boxes are being ticked and there's no chink in the
Yeah.
armor. But there are days where I'm my own chink in the armor and I have a hard time getting stuff done. And I'm quite hard on myself. And the days that things aren't going well, it's not that I don't go to work. It's that I can't stop working and I sacrifice things that on paper are more valuable to me, and I get my priorities a little bit mixed up, and uh, my blood pressure's too high because I'm stressed from all the things that are going on. And um, I am sacrificing a level of athletic ability because I am off doing things so much,
Mm.
which part of part of surprising myself at the Arnold is that I did not have a perfect life scenario. I had a baby who was 2.5 weeks old, and you guys know how that goes.
Yeah.
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 Be able to overcome these obstacles. And I'm sort of hedging my bets of how many obstacles can I put in my own way and still be good, given that the obstacles are building something
Yeah.
productive over the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're showing the world just
Mhm.
how many obstacles you can put in your own way and
Yeah,
coming
and
out of it pretty much okay.
hopefully it
It's
turns into, hopefully people can see that there is a part of it that, your first focus, your first circle has to be you and your family and taking care of them.
yeah,
Mhm.
Your second has
100%.
to be family and friends. But I hope that people can see that all of the work I'm doing should benefit strongman as a whole in the
It,
future. And it's getting
very
exposed to
much
new
so.
audiences, and it's getting
Mhm.
exposed in a way where um, I don't outwardly look hugely unhealthy or hugely unattainable, even though I'm 6'3", 320. People are surprised that I'm that heavy who aren't in the sport. And I
Mhm.
can run around a little bit and I can do a CrossFit workout very poorly. And I think hopefully over time people can see that and feel as though they can participate in the sport, which is the ethos of the clothing brand as well, is that it is actually a
Mm,
really kind, welcoming environment.
Mhm.
The whole "Lift Heavy, Be Kind" thing is not a declaration of who I am, because I'm not the kindest person all the time. I could be a right asshole like the rest of us, but it's what I saw in the sports, and I saw how it actually was, and the bravado that it
Mhm.
purports to be. And I thought, let's put the kindness forward first, and then maybe someone who's not confident, not comfortable, they're going to be the first ones back in the gym.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's the thing too. But like I said, I'm new into the culture myself because like I came from bodybuilding, and working with Nick and seeing strongman and being a strongman. It's just I remember the first time I met you. You were literally sitting there with your girlfriend at the time, eating, and you were just talking about the numbers you were running, and I'm sitting there with Gavin and Shane, and we were just having a great conversation in Sacramento. And I was just like, "Who is this kid?" Like, just and you were just talking about like your trading numbers. I'm just like, That's ridiculous. That's trade. That's not competition." and and then when Nick was doing another podcast, he came back, and I was like, "Dude, we got to keep an eye on this guy because just the way you were talking was like I could see the glow, the image, the energy, everything coming from you as we were just having this great conversation during while you were just eating real quick. It was like right at I think second day of qualifications. It was just like I said, it was just I could see it in you then. And then I even talked to you later that day because we got you on our other podcast for Legends of Iron. And I was just like, man, this kid's coming up quick. And now I'm just like turning around to literally the second year, you just take it. This is like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's logically I can get there, and logically I can
mm,
tell you how I can beat anybody. Emotionally,
mhm.
it's I feel like I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and realize that I got hit in the head 2.5 years ago. That's really you can't tell me a person who's been so fortunate in the sport to come along at a time where the style of events suit them, and to come along at a time where the prize money is what it is, and the opportunity in such a growing field is where it is. And to be honest, it's an extension of my life. I might be the world's strongest man, but I think I'm the world's luckiest man as well, because this 10 years ago, if I came along, like, even if I was as good as I am now, you'd still make a living, but how good? And in 10 years time, when the prize money is much larger, you're probably going to have guys who I wouldn't hold a candle to come along. So I think, yeah, I'm just I'm in an incredibly lucky time, and I feel a big responsibility to make sure that I'm giving back. But every time someone says I can't imagine, it blows my mind how fast you've come up, and blows my mind what you're doing. I just say, imagine being me, and it blows my mind too. And I think a lesson for anyone listening to it is, I didn't know what I was capable of at all, and many times along the way, I was surprising myself. But I'll never allow my logical thoughts to stop myself from doing what I'm actually capable of. For example, when I went to pull the 475 kilo deadlift, I right before I said, I probably won't get this. I think there's a 30% chance, 25% chance, but I'm going to give it hell. And I think a lot of people get in their own way, where if they think there's a 20% chance of getting something, that should make you try 5 times harder. But some people will
Mm.
be a little bit dejected by that and feel like, well, there's no way I'm that good. And
Yeah.
logically, I go, well, I am. But emotionally, many times I've gone, there's no way I'm that good. It's only been recently, after 13, 14 podiums in a row, that have gone like, you know what, this shit is not a coincidence. It's not
It's
a
not.
fluke.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah, I think that's a really valuable takeaway for people out there. I think you can do a hell of a lot more than you think you can if you just get out your own way.
Agreed. And that's a good, solid growth thing and piece of advice that you have out there. Is people do get in their own ways. We all do it to some degree, and it's really neat to hear you say that, because that's going to inspire a whole lot of people to think differently about how they approach things, and that's going to change the game even more as time goes on. But
And
I
it
was
is,
back there though 10, 15 years ago. I'm going
yeah.
to tell you right now, you would have cleaned house then too. You really
It-
would have. I mean, because being there at the end of Marius and seeing the athlete that he was, he's still he's he was unbelievably good, but it's still not at that level. I was there when Derek was at his peak. Sadrunas, Brian, I've seen it, and athletically, and just with the events, there's there's nothing put in your way you're not going to be in the top three in. that I've seen moving forwards. There's nothing. They're they're going to have to. There's no way to design something that you're not going to figure out and function unbelievably well at, because you're that good. Your discipline's that good. Your mental capability is more than I've ever seen at figuring things out, knowing how the body works, knowing how to, you know, ex- execute the lift or whatever it is, and then recover from it. And the stuff you're talking about, the nervous system, the blood flow restriction, and stuff like that. I I'm looking at that stuff, going, "Oh wow, I'm learning new stuff. I never thought about the blood flow restriction stuff that you're doing now."
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely amazing. And now watching much more of that to get more ideas and stuff like that. So it's neat to see how you're progressing, and then how you're taking the knowledge you have of recovery and helping people with that and moving it on to the next level. It's just going to make everybody better. It's going to leave a lasting thing on this sport, that you're going to change it. You realize that, right? You're going to change the way everything's done. 5, 10 years from now, the way you're doing things now, guys will be doing it that way. And
Yeah,
and
I
then
hope
your
so.
innate ability to pick up on things. I mean, watching you learn how to do the jerk was outrageous. I mean, it really was. It's just like, oh God, wow. Now he's just going
Yeah.
to pop him up over there. You're right. The Axel world record is in jeopardy right now, because
Oh, big time. Yeah.
you're the guy that's going to be able to clean it and pop it up over your head.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
did that 206 kilo. I did that a couple of days ago, and
yeah,
that was a little bit on a whim. That's the first. My PB actual clean and press was 180, because I've never had to go higher than that, 400 pounds for the Apollon's wheel.
Man.
And that full clip is actually like, I tried to do it the first time how I normally do, which is flipping my hand midair, and
yeah.
I discovered very quickly at heavier weight you can't like catch it that way. And so then I dropped it and took about 3 seconds, and then went and did it again. I could have broke the world record 2 days ago. So I think come world strongest man time, that'll be a dangerous event for sure.
Yeah, it's like I can't wait. I really can't.
Mhm.
It's gonna be fun. And then, I mean, the prep coming up for the next 4 or 5 weeks,
Yeah.
and all the stuff that's going through, because Worlds doesn't necessarily give you exact weights and distances and stuff like this. It's kind of like, well, you have a truck pull, well, or vehicle pull. You have this, you have that. So it's very non-descriptive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat, because you can come in and adapt to things very quickly. And then you'll come up and ask people questions too, which is one of the most impressive things as well. You'll
Yeah.
just ask, "What do you think?" And
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah. I
cool.
think you can never get too big about yourself. That there are people at OSG. There's amateurs who could teach me something for sure.
Mhm,
There are amateurs who've been in the sport for 10 years, and I haven't been in the sport for 10 years, so there's something to be learned. But I've
mhm,
come across a pretty consistent pattern where people talk, and I think it's natural for all of us to obsess over like what is the last 5% that you're doing to get the edge. But
mhm,
I've come across a pattern with a lot of high level guys, top 5, top 10 in the world guys, where they'll do all of their extra, all of their 5%, but it still comes down to something as basic as I have never, ever, ever left the gym before my program is over. I have never, ever missed a day at the gym. That consistency is something
mhm,
that even the guys at the
Mhm.
top, it's not happening like you think it is. They will take a day off because they're tired. They will leave the gym early because they got pissed because they missed a lift, or because they're hungry, or because whatever. And I think it's funny how many parallels there are between being a top level athlete in the world and just trying to generally be healthy. The fundamental of that is that you have to put in a very good effort every single day, and you don't. It doesn't have to be unreal. But I think that's the real edge that I have, is that training for me is never a negotiation. Sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes it's not the right implement. But people will talk about how I used a shitty fingers finger, but I did every fucking session on that finger. I hit every single thing I was trying to do.
Mhm.
And you might have had a perfect finger, but you only put in 75% of the work on it. You skipped a couple of
Mhm.
sessions. That's still the stuff that I believe makes the most difference. And then all these extras, the blood flow restriction, the no stone unturned, all that is
mhm.
genuinely as much fun personal experiments and social media content as it is actually trying to make myself better. I think all of those things have just really started to align. And I will be better at World's Strongest Man than I was at the Arnold. And I think that's a dangerous prospect for everyone else.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
really dangerous at both of those Arnolds.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going in, you're the hands down favorite this year. I mean, there's no questions
The
asked
momentum.
as far with the momentum and just the things that you're doing, but also in your process and the way you do things. I don't, there's guys that are out there working hard, but I don't think there's people out there working smarter and harder at the same time, getting the most out of everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
You're the most calculated person I've ever seen at that. And that's
Yeah.
saying something, because I've seen some lifters in my day and some competitors and some strongman guys and some power lifters and stuff like that. And the absolute approach that you go to these things that are the most cerebral that I've ever seen. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that you managed to do is going to change the way things are going for the next 10, 15, 20 years. They
Yeah,
really are.
it's quite funny because I think a large part of that is I didn't come up in strongman. I was never indoctrinated the way that most people are. And so
Hmm.
I've sort of found my own way to do everything and realize that I'm not normal afterwards, which is sort of a euphemism for my life, and just discovering that I'm not normal at a certain stage or other.
That's the
And
title of this episode, Not Normal.
Well, we
but
just got the episode title.
say something like
Huh?
at the Arnold UK, we're doing a
Hmm.
farmers for distance. There's a chalk
Hmm.
pool at each end, right? And to me, it's like chalk is that is 50% of your grip. It is as important as having strong grip as how chalked up can you get your hands. So to me, it's just like I'm not even thinking about I need to put chalk all the way along the way. And then, of course, I need to chalk up my hands with 15 seconds left. I couldn't have run to the chalk bowl. I wouldn't have won the event if I didn't put chalk down everywhere. But I don't really pay attention to what other guys are doing in terms of their tactics and strategy. Only after do I realize that no one else did anything like that. And it's just baffling to me. And I hope that more guys start to think that way. And I think it's gonna change the sport in one of two ways. I think it's either going to become a little bit more meticulous and taking care of all of those little things, or promoters are going to have to change the rules so that guys don't have a 2-minute time limit, stand and stare at a log for 45 seconds before they do another rep, because I recognize that that's not interesting to watch, but you also have to take advantage of every single rule
Yeah.
afforded to you. And I
Every
don't know
second.
which way it's going to go, to be honest. So over time, I guess we'll find out. But it's certainly fun to hopefully be pushing the sport in a more positive direction.
Oh, much more positive. Plus, you're doing it in a healthy way, or it's a sustainable way, where you're not going to you're going to be done when you want to be done.
Yeah,
You're not going to come into where you're having a health issue and you have to stop and you have to back off. You're
yeah,
going through it the right way. And if you want to do this 10, 15 years, you're going to be here. If you want to do this 5 more years, you're going to be here. You're going to be able to stop when you want to stop, not because you have to stop. And that's probably one of the most impressive things as well, is you're doing everything in a sustainable way.
yeah. Well, I do feel healthy, and I was in Nashville for a couple of days, getting some blood work done and making sure that that side's taken care of. And I think
Hmm.
genuinely monitoring my health and being cognizant that there are things that we're doing that are not good for your health. Yeah, there's a
Hmm.
supplementation side to that, which I think is
Mhm.
talked about too much in terms of how much that affects your health. But there's the
Yep.
reality of being 325 pounds, and that's not good for you. In my last No Stone Unturned, I talked about BMI as a thing, and I think it's a really
Hmm.
triggering thing for people in the sport to be told like you are obese, and that
Mhm.
means something. That's not a good thing. You
Yeah.
can do things to make it less harmful, for sure. Like
Yeah.
exercising regularly, great. It's combating that. Eating a healthy diet is great and good. It combats that. But like, all of these things count. And for me, I know what being heavy puts on your body. I know what the acute spikes in blood pressure do to your heart over time. And you're just naive or dumb if you don't think that it's going to have really long lasting effects, which is why I won't go above 325, 330. I just won't do it. Uh, if that loses me a world's title, okay, the good on the guy who's going the extra mile. But on the flip side, I think taking care of your health, then you sleep a little bit better, you recover a little bit better, you move much better, and it probably helps you in the sport more than it harms you. So hopefully that's another legacy that I can leave behind, is that caring about your health and your body is integral to performing at the top level.
No, 100%.
Mhm.
Same thing. I never wanted to get above 320, 325. 322 is the heaviest I've ever been. So I get it. I mean, 100%. I mean, yeah. And the thing is you have the ability to still stand with everyone on the static events. And that's what, if you already have that ability, why do you need to be heavier? If you can
Yeah,
do it, and you can. So there's no reason to take yourself that much further when there's the risk to reward is not there.
absolutely.
So, it's just fun. Plus, it's fun just seeing you and catching up with you too. But when did they let you out of those handcuffs, by the way?
The handcuffs. You
At
should tell me.
OSG,
At
the
OSG.
handcuffs when they handcuffed you.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of minutes, I sweet talked him. I said, "Do you know who I am?" And then
Oh, that's awesome. So,
yeah. That has to be the
so
sport, right? We're
yeah.
we're who gets into strongman? The average person who gets into strongman is not someone who, like, and not to say that no one in the sport has lots of friends before they get in, but more often than not, we're sort of outcast. We sort of don't get along with a huge number of people for whatever reason. Maybe because you're abrasive, or maybe because you're shy, or maybe lack self-confidence or something. We all get into the sport because we're a little bit broken in some way. And I think I came into it a little bit different than other people, but I very much still resonate with that message. And say something like stupid like that, like the laughs in and around that, and having other people see us just fucking about and seeing that, okay, like, it's not as serious as people might think it is, then hopefully it adds a layer of enjoyment. Because
Mhm.
I think not enough people in the sport are having fun. And that's why I value having fun in and around strongman so much, because that's what it started as. No one gets
Mhm.
into it and says, this is going to be my living. Well, and the people who do are
True.
like daft. You should not ever,
Yeah.
ever, ever have that. This should be the cherry on top.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
hopefully that then just, again, drops the barrier. People realize that they should be having fun. And if you're not having fun, go do something else. Because even if you become a pro, you make whatever money you make. If you're not having fun, it's just a waste of time anyway. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's just so some of the stuff. Where do you come up with these ideas, though? I mean, some of this stuff I'm just watching, and I'm just like, it'll be 10, 20 minutes before I stop laughing about it. They're like, "What's so funny?" And I'll show people the video. They're just like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "Well, if you're not, go follow them." So, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny. Some of the stuff. The girl, what the weight? How much do you weigh? 135. Like, and he's
Yeah. Yeah.
was
Um,
135. And that was hilarious.
some of it is like me and my team, we will just send stuff to each other and then rip it from other people. I would say
Mhm,
that's maybe 10%, 15%. And then this
mhm.
is just, it's just my brain. It's just my childlike brain. If you let that flow a little bit, I think a lot of men are this way. You just let stupid ideas flow for a bit, and then you're going to come up with something that makes you laugh, and it makes you laugh. It probably makes someone else laugh as well. My favorite one was um, the butt plug video.
Oh my god.
You're like, yeah, people talk about the squat plug all the time as a joke, and like you just apply that to something that's like part of a social media trend, and like that's the recipe to just pop off. And the funniest thing is, whenever I'm making these videos, of all of the things that I do and all of the businesses that I run, since they all are downstream from the marketing that I do through social media for the most part, my dollar return per time, I think, is higher doing stupid content than it is doing anything else. Because that then people feel like they know me, and genuinely that is me. Like if you spend time around me, that is who I am. I love to laugh about things like that. And
Mhm.
then then it builds a loyal fan base. It grows the fan base because it can go viral. And yeah, just making
Yeah.
sure to have fun in the process, because the days are long. And I'm treating strongman as a sprint until I retire, and then I'll back things off quite a bit.
Yeah. Nice. That's good. I will say this: at Worlds, though, watch out. Eddie likes to stick plungers on people's heads. So just
Yeah,
make
you might
sure you're
not
not
want to have a clean
make sure
shave.
you're not freshly shaved,
I'll,
or pay attention to where he's at all the time. At least he's
I'll,
good enough to buy a new plunger.
I'll steal a yarmulke from one of my Jewish friends, and that'll be my protection.
There you go. But oh man, that's freaking awesome. I'm like so excited for this Worlds, dude. I cannot wait to go.
Oh yeah,
watch
it's
the
already
meet.
stacked.
But
Yeah, it's gonna get.
oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here just laughing. So hips. The internal. So now I'm going to sit here and pick your brain.
Okay.
So you know how bad the rotation on my hips are, correct?
Yeah, yeah. You're locked in.
Now, if you look at the little smile on his face right now, it tells you just how kind of nasty they are. What other things would, in your opinion, do you think I should be doing to increase that range of motion? Because I'm already doing quite a bit of stuff. It's getting a little better. I'm getting down to depth now. It's painful, but I'm getting down to depth.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to be able to wiggle under the deadlift bar again. And I'm
Yeah.
starting to get back to pulling decent at that as well.
Sure.
Is there anything other than replacing them, which you recommended?
Yeah.
Anything else I should be doing?
Look, in terms of me recommending replacing them, that's just what I think would get them the best. It's not any sort of medical advice. But let's just talk first about, like, if you are experiencing, and I think a lot of people do, that restriction of motion in the hips, you have to identify, is that because of a limitation in your active range of motion or your passive range of motion? Active range of motion, meaning, is it your muscles inhibiting you from getting to a spot? And that's something that's can be adjusted for sure. If it's passive, then it's your soft tissues. Now, let's talk about soft tissues for a second. When you're older, what are the two things that never stop growing?
Your nose and
Do you
your
know what?
ears.
Nose and
What's
ears,
up?
yeah.
Your nose and
Your
ears.
nose and ears.
Uncut bones.
And the reason that the nose and ears continuously grow is because cartilage never stops growing as we get older. And in a lot of ways, our soft tissues continue to grow unless they're stimulated in a way for them not to. So, for example, your intervertebral discs are not the same as soft tissue per se, but they won't grow because we constantly have that pressure on them. The same way that an ex-gymnast will be able to do the splits for 15 years after they're done, because we do retain that adaptation. But the cartilage in your hips continues to grow forever as well. And if we think about how a baby can squat the way they do because they have so little, their acetabulum, which is where the femur sits, it's so shallow that they have heaps of range of motion. Their head is also disproportionately heavy to their body, so they can balance in this really nice upward position. Sometimes you'll see on social media that how good it is and how broken adult bodies are because we can't do that. We're not meant to be able to do that, first of all. But in your case, that cartilage continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. Well, at a certain stage, it's going to grow over the head of your femur so much that you just hit this endpoint. And when you hit that endpoint, the only thing that could happen is you round your low back and your pelvis rotates instead of your hip, or you abduct your knee, as in that you shoot it out to the side in that only plane that your hips are allowed to go. And so your physical therapy, your rehab, your stretching, all of that is going to expose as much active range as you can, but it's never going to fix your passive range. And so you do have a very low ceiling on your ability to be able to increase the range in your hips. That being said, the things that you're doing are exactly what you should be doing to not lose any more range. If you're squatting to full depth, you're not going to allow the cartilage to grow over the hip. If you're trying to get down into deadlifting, you're going to improve in small ways, whether that's figuring out how to do it or just retaining that range in your hips. The thing that's most important is the day that you stop trying to do that. If you just said that I'm going to take 6 months off from squatting, I promise you're never going to be able to squat to depth again, because that cartilage is going to grow back over, and now you've lost your range, and now you're in big trouble. And I say this because I've actually like grabbed your hips and I've moved your leg, and you can feel the difference between like this is something that could be stretched or just like there's a
Mhm.
hard block. You know, when you're stretching
Right.
something, you know, if it's a hard block or a soft block. You're stretching hamstrings. If someone says I'm done, you could give it a little bit extra. There's a little bit of movement there. When I take your hips into flexion, it's just like boom and out to the side, like straight away. You're like you try to push it in, and you're like it's like beating two rocks together. Like never going to happen. So that's why I say replacement is something that probably is a smart thing for you to do and has really good outcomes compared to what they have had in the past.
Mhm.
And the actual load of squatting is much less than the load on your hips of doing a yoke, right? Because
Yeah.
the body doesn't feel force, the body feels changes in acceleration. And sorry, the body doesn't feel load, the body feels force, and force is a change in acceleration in the weight. And in the hip when you're yoke and you're bashing your foot into the ground, that's way harder on the hip than it is to slowly descend with a 850 squat or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's a long-winded answer to yes. Yeah, I think you're doing everything you can do, but if you really want to be functioning optimally, a replacement is probably a good shout.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
It's funny because we always joke Nick's got a built-in squat suit. You know what I think about
Yeah.
how dense his muscles and how tight his body is. He's like,
People need to realize though that your hips didn't get that way from strongman. It didn't get that way from training. The overarching thing about deterioration of joints is genetic, and
Mhm.
exercise clinically has been shown to reduce the risk of soft tissue deterioration. People who run have higher cartilage turnover, meaning it's protecting degradation compared to people who don't run. And so we don't have two Nick Bests to say, here's the one that exercised and had hip replacement, here's the one who didn't exercise and perfect. But the evidence would say that you're actually in a better spot now than you would be if you weren't squatting heavy. So no one out there should be afraid of them moving like we do, their parents moving like we do. Just if you want to be healthy, just take 20% off of the intensity, and that's a really good place to be in.
Right on. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Probably weren't expecting to go to do that today. But
No, that's
thank
all
you
right.
very much. No, I
It's
appreciate it.
normal for me.
It also proves to my point of everything that you do. You're so knowledgeable. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and that you continues to learn and continues to grow. So it's neat that you get to share this stuff with people. And I just got very lucky that you just happened to work with my hips, and I wanted to kind of it was kind of one of my ways to show you to get you to speak about it, that people can see just how analytical you are and how knowledgeable you are about those things. So it was just thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
it's quite irritating to be honest. That people can easily see the upside to relentlessly assessing and calculating, and
Mm.
but there's a part to it where your brain just doesn't shut off, and there's always things spinning, and I'm always googling something, and always trying to figure something out, and always reading something. But there's another side to it where I am very calculated, and
Mhm.
calculated is a compliment, and it's also an insult because you don't want a calculated friend. You don't want to describe a friend that way. And I
Mm.
have to constantly evaluate like, am I doing this because I'm doing it for good or because I'm doing it because I know where it's going to get me? For example, like donating back profit from Lift Heavy Be Kind. I like
Mhm.
came up with that idea, and the origin of what I was thinking is like, let's give back to the community, and that's great. But then the outcome is people are more likely to support the brand. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to do a good thing, and it's turning out better for anyone else. You're like, well, fuck. I guess you just have to accept that that's how life goes sometimes.
Yeah, it is, but you're doing a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's at the end of the day, that's the thing. And I mean, whether it's calculated or not, good things are good things.
Hmm.
yeah,
People sit there and plan calculated bad things all the time. So I mean, it's you're calculating to do good thing. That is great. And you know, people are going to detract from anything just out of jealousy or whatever all the time. And that's on them. It's not on you. You're trying to do something that's good. So, I appreciate all the giving back and all the things that you're doing to this sport. And you're one of the few people that will give credit to people when you learn things too. Not a lot of the guys will do that. You teach a lot of these guys things and they won't say anything about it. You will. And that's
Yeah.
pretty freaking cool on my part. I think that's extremely impressive. So thank you for all that you're doing for the sport, all that you're doing for your, your wife and your family and everything else. It is extremely impressive to see how together it is, and so thank you.
You're welcome.
And
You're welcome.
I
And
do
I
have
hope
one other
that
question.
other guys,
What's
I
that?
hope other guys can see
Mhm.
that being world's strongest man has propagated what I'm doing for sure. But
Mhm.
at the Arnold, I was the only athlete with a booth. At Worlds, I'll be the only athlete with a booth. At the Arnold UK, I was the only athlete with a booth. And this is just like really easy ways to connect with the fans, and it's going to help grow our sport, but also a really easy way for you to grow a brand if you'd like to. And then
Yeah.
prize money will come, sure, but you don't even have to think about it or talk about it because you're going for two separate reasons.
Mhm.
Right. But you're also very giving as well. I mean, how many world's strongest men, how many winners have gone out and, sat there at OSG and loaded all those events and pushed all the frames back and picked up all the sandbags and do all that? There was other guys there that could have helped, and they didn't.
Yeah,
You did.
I I think, like I've said before, the focus should be on them, not on me. It should be why is that
Right.
not common, rather than it's particularly special. Because I don't, and I actually run into this problem a little bit. I don't see myself as world's strongest man. I just see myself as Mitchell Hooper, and that
Right.
is just a
No, okay.
normal guy who just struggles to get his own laundry done and leaves dishes in the sink, and like happens to be incredibly
Yeah.
gifted at one thing. And yeah, I work hard, and that's fine, and that's an admirable quality. I've other qualities that aren't as admirable, and I'm working on them. But
Oh, we all do.
it's funny. The problem I run into is since I don't see myself that way, but other people do, they'll remember these interactions for that
Ever.
I don't think about at all, and it's like, oh well, you didn't talk to me here when you said this. What did you mean? Or when you made this post, and were you like I made a post? When was it? It was a post before the Arnold UK. I said that I'm not coming to make an appearance. I'm coming to win, or something to that effect. And
Mhm.
then it was like, oh, he's taking shots at Tom. I'm like, no, stop reading into what I'm saying. I'm just saying
Yeah.
my best. So it's difficult navigating interpersonal relationships with people who I don't know very well, with fans and other competitors
Mhm.
in the sport, because they do value your time and your attention and your words way more than I probably value them filtering out of my mouth. And so it's been a process of learning how to behave, and that's one of the things that I do have to work on, because um, I see myself the exact same as everyone else, and I
Mhm.
think that's how I want to be. But at the same way, it runs you into problems if you don't recognize that some other people might not see you the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does. So that leads me to the next thing, because you're getting well known. Things keep developing. People keep knowing who you are. You're starting to get more famous. I mean, how does how does that feel? Because like I walk around and go, I'm just me. So people come up to me, they say stuff. I'm nice. Thank you. Take a picture with them. Do all that stuff.
Yeah.
How, it can be a little overwhelming at times. How are you? You just kind of explained how you're dealing with a lot of it, but how are you dealing with that? Because as you go, it's going to get more and more and more. I mean, at the
Yeah.
Arnold, I'm sure you couldn't walk anywhere without getting
Yeah, it was
stopped like
crazy.
every 2 seconds.
I'd go to
Yeah.
my booth, which was just outside the strongman area. I'd go there to just like change my shirt. So I took one off, put one on, turned around, and a lineup of 30 people. Where did you come from? What is this? Um, but if you know me, say people who knew me before I became who I am today, no
Mhm.
part of me wants to be famous. No part of me wants to be
Mhm.
the social media following ego stroke. I don't care. I don't want that. I've never wanted that. But I just see too much of an opportunity to do good in the world to not build that. And so I run
Right.
myself into this thing where I'm becoming someone and with a platform that forces me to grow. It makes me uncomfortable. And the byproduct of that is you do get recognized. And now I do. I get recognized virtually everywhere I go by someone or another. And the there's a few obvious challenges with it, and you learn things about yourself where I've never really considered myself to be someone who gets overwhelmed. But if I have a crowd of people wanting my attention, I can't deal. I have to leave. If I've got a line of people, that's okay. That's better. So, for example, like I won the Arnold US, and for whatever reason, they just allowed everyone onto the stage, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I left the stage immediately. So you'll see pictures with competitors and fans, and I had to exit. And then you run into the problem. Well, oh, he thinks he's too good for everyone because he left straight away. But no, I just left to go to my booth so I could deal with a line rather than a mob. So that's one thing. Another thing is when you're not, if I'm not in a good mood, I just won't go out in public anymore, because I know if I get recognized by someone and I'm in a bad mood, I sort of slough them off, that they remember that and it impacts them. And be training at the gym is becoming more and more difficult. So I'm finishing up my basement gym, and now I know if I really need to focus, that's becoming a basement gym activity. And if I want a little bit of social time and hang out a bit more, I have to accept that at the gym, these people are going to come up. The thing that I've really become comfortable with and have learned is that you're not going to change people's behavior. You're not going to change how they feel. Don't post on Instagram, and I never have, and I never will. Don't post like, don't come up to me today. Don't come up to me while I'm training. Don't, because they want to, and they're excited, and that's fine. But you just have to really control the environment that you're putting yourself in. Just the same advice I'll give my daughter. Like if you put yourself in a scenario, in a situation, and a bad thing happens because you put yourself in a place that you wouldn't be comfortable, well, an element of that rests on you. And so if I go out and I'm in a place or at the Arnold walking around by myself, I know that that's going to get too much, and I know I'm going to act in a way that I don't want to, i.e. like ignoring people or head down or whatever. And that's on me. And I think one of the most powerful things that we can do as people is to take just ultimate responsibility and ownership over everything. So regardless of whatever anyone says, however I feel, whatever it is, if I can put it onto myself and say I had the capacity to control that in one way or another, then I don't feel so bad about it happening, because I know I can correct that in the future. But it is bizarre. It's very bizarre for someone who never set out to be famous, never wanted to be famous, never wanted to be recognized, had a difficult time talking to strangers, full stop, to becoming who I am now. It's a learning process, and it's interesting. And I really just have two very distinct circles. I've got the people who I really trust on a day-to-day basis, and that's a very small set of people. Essentially, it's my family and the people who work for me. And then the second layer is, people who, if I have time and energy, I have time and energy. And if I don't, then I don't. And I'm not going to feel bad about that. And that's really it. I've got so many more acquaintances than I could ever imagine having over the past few years. But I have less people who I would call friends now than I did years ago. And I'm actually incredibly thankful for that. And I'm quite comfortable with, like, if you've got the biggest party you could possibly want to throw, I would have 20 people at my house, maybe 15, 20 people. I'm like, that's plenty. That's a cap. We're good.
Yeah. It's interesting on how people handle it, and you handle it with a lot of grace. So that's pretty cool.
I try.
Yeah,
The one thing I will say, though, is there is just generally rude behavior that people just, when they see you as something greater than a person, to me, it's dehumanizing, and I don't appreciate it, even though they're treating you like you're way up here. For example, yesterday in the airport, I forget, the guy had some sort of job there. I don't know if it was TSA or whatever. And he just like yelled like, "Hooper!" And I'm like, don't yell at me in the airport. Don't yell at me ever. I've never met you. You're not cheering for me to show. You're drawing a bunch of attention to me. And there's it's just bizarre. And that's the stuff where I'm like, what are you doing?
It's going to get you surrounded.
Just leave it alone and just come up and say a quick hello or something. But anyway, I will never forget that I'm sitting in the house I am, and I drive the car I do, and I have the investments I do and the business I do because of these people. And I will never fail to acknowledge that. And that's why I will be out and available to the public more than any other competitor. I will make myself more available. I will take all of the pictures. I will sign all of the autographs. I'll do everything I possibly can do to reciprocate in some small way. With the ironic thing being, like I said before, that is just going to snowball onto itself, and I do recognize that, and I know that. But the root of it is that I just want the sport to be taken care of. I want to leave it in a better place, and I want to leave individuals in a better place after they speak to me than before. And that's on me to control when I'm open and ready to do that and when I'm not.
No,
Well,
absolutely.
it's clear that you're doing that.
Mhm.
And from where I sit, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. It's impressive and it's neat. And I know the sport that I love, that you love, that we all love, is still going to be doing well, and it's going to be even better. And it's going to get better because of people like you.
I hope
And
so.
the way we left it, which I'll announce right now, I'm going to do OSG.
Nice.
I'm going to do it this year.
Amazing.
I'll be right there with them. You know what I'm saying? We're
That's
gonna
awesome.
hold it, and
I'll be there as well. I'll be doing my same duties as last year.
Sweet.
So that'll be good to be able to watch you do your thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's why stop doing what I love to do? I didn't know how the kidney was going to be. I now know how it's going to be. I'm coming back.
You got to get those shoes back, man.
I do.
We already arranged.
So
Well, that's amazing. I think it's you bring a lot to the sport. You bring a lot of attention, and you show your vulnerable side more than anyone I've ever met, which I think for for our sport is incredibly valuable. So, however long we can keep you around, then I think the better off we are.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah. And Nick, with
So-
that being said, Mitch, you have lift heavy, be kind, but Nick has his own saying, and we usually end the show like that.
Okay.
So,
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say before we call it? Is there anything you want to cover?
No, just anyone listening. Like I'm incredibly appreciative of all the people who take the time to listen to what I have to say, and I take the responsibility probably too seriously sometimes. So hopefully everyone can see that my intention is to leave the sport in a really good spot. And
Yes.
I get asked, the two things I get asked the most is like, will you become the greatest of all time? And when are you retiring? Those are like the 2 points of interest for people. And to that, I'll say I'm just having a blast competing in the sport right now. And so long as I'm having fun doing it, I'll be here for the long time to come. But whenever I do decide that I'm done, which it won't be 10 or 15 years from now, it's not on the cards for me. But when I do decide that I'm done, it's impossible for me to see strongman not being a big part of my life.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got a lot going on, and I really appreciate it. And to everybody out there, as always, train hard, train smart, and be the best you can be. And lift heavy,